For 8 years, the boy's lips never moved. Every specialist said the same thing. Psychosomatic. Incurable. Accept it. His father spent fortunes, flew across continents, begged the world's top doctors to look again. They all declared defeat. Then a maid noticed something no one else did, a tiny dark flicker at the back of that child's throat, and what she ultimately pulled out will leave you speechless. Oliver Hart was a billionaire. Private estates, global empires, more wealth than most families see in 10 generations. But his son Finn was born silent. 8 years old, never spoke a single word. Oliver tried everything. Mayo Clinic, Switzerland, Tokyo. Specialists who charge tens of thousands per consultation. They ran tests, scans, psychological evaluations. All of them said the same thing. Apraxia. Trauma-induced. Permanent. Learn to live with it. But Oliver couldn't accept it because Finn was all he had left. His wife died bringing that boy into the world. So Oliver kept searching, kept spending, kept begging God for a miracle. What he didn't know, the answer wasn't coming from a credential-heavy specialist. It was coming from the woman he just hired to clean his mansion. Serena Williams was a maid. 32. No medical degree, no credentials, just a woman desperate to pay her family's crushing debts. But she noticed something about Finn that every expert had missed. The way he constantly pressed his jaw. The tiny, dark mark deep in his throat. The silent pain flashing across his face when he tried to swallow. And one evening while Oliver was away on business, she made a decision that would either save that boy's life or destroy her own. What happened next? You need to see it for yourself. Before we continue, hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I believe this story found you today for a reason. Now back to the story in full. Serena needed this job. Her mother's medical bills were stacking up faster than she could count, and the nursing facility had given her 30 days. 30 days or her mother was out. So when the Hart estate offered triple the usual rate, she didn't ask questions. She just said yes. The mansion was massive, cold, and unnaturally quiet. Mrs. Patterson, the head housekeeper, met her at the service entrance with a face like carved ice. You clean. You don't speak to the boy. You don't look at Mr. Hart unless spoken to. You don't ask questions. Serena nodded, swallowing her nerves. Then she saw him. Finn. 8 years old, yellow shirt, standing by the window like a ghost. And that's when she noticed it. The wince. A tiny movement barely there, as he pressed his small hand against his jaw and tilted his head just slightly. Like something hurt. Like something was wrong. Every specialist had missed it. But Serena saw it clear as day. The first week, Serena just watched. Finn spent hours alone in that massive house, surrounded by toys he never touched and books he never opened. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. She wasn't supposed to interact with him, but one afternoon she found him sitting on the floor, struggling with a broken toy car. She knelt down, fixed the wheel, and slid it back to him without a word. His eyes lit up. The next day, she left him a note. Just a smiley face. He left one back. Soon they had a language all their own. Drawings. Gestures. Little moments when no one was watching. And during one of those moments, when he laughed silently at something she drew, she saw it again. The wince. The tilt. She leaned closer, pretending to show him something, and glimpsed the back of his throat. There. A shadow. Dark. Small. Wrong. Mrs. Patterson cornered her in the hallway the next morning. I've seen you with the boy. Her voice was sharp, cutting. You're here to clean. Not to play nurse. Not to get ideas. Mr. Hart has spent millions on that child. If you think you know better than the doctors, you're a fool. And if I catch you again, you're gone. Serena's hands shook as she scrubbed the floors that night. She needed this job. Her mother needed this job. But she couldn't shake what she'd seen. That darkness in Finn's throat. That pain he carried in silence. So she prayed. Knelt right there on the cold marble and prayed for wisdom, for courage, for God to show her what to do. Because every instinct in her body screamed that the diagnosis was wrong. That the silence wasn't permanent. That someone just needed to look. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Serena was folding linens when she heard a thud from the hallway. She rushed out and found Finn on the floor, tears streaming down his face, body shaking, but no sound. Not a cry. Not a whimper. Nothing. He looked at her with those desperate eyes and shook his head violently when she reached for the phone. He didn't want the doctors. He didn't want more tests, more strangers poking at him, more pain. He wanted help. Real help. Serena's heart pounded. Mrs. Patterson was gone for the night. Oliver was in Singapore. It was just her and this terrified little boy who couldn't scream for the relief he needed. She knelt beside him, wiped his tears, and whispered, "I see you, Finn. I see you." And in that moment, she made her choice. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let me know you're here. This community means everything. Oliver's private jet was still 12 hours out. The house was empty except for the night security outside. Serena went to her bag and pulled out the small wooden spoon her grandmother had given her years ago, smooth and thin, used for checking throats back home when doctors were too far away. She knelt in front of Finn, just like in the image you see now, her hand steady despite her racing heart. "I need you to trust me," she whispered. Finn nodded, eyes wide but certain. She tilted his head back gently, used her phone's flashlight, and saw it clearly now. Lodged deep near his tonsil. A small, dark object. Foreign. Wrong. With a prayer on her lips and her hands guided by something beyond herself, she carefully maneuvered the spoon, applied the gentlest pressure and pulled. The object came free. A tiny, jagged piece of plastic. Forgotten. Embedded. Stealing his voice for 8 years. For a moment, nothing happened. Finn stared at Serena, eyes wide, the tiny piece of plastic sitting in her palm like an accusation against every expert who'd ever examined him. Then his hand went to his throat. Slowly. Trembling. He swallowed once. Twice. His mouth opened, and for the first time in 8 years, sound came out. Ah. It was barely a whisper, rough and uncertain, but it was real. Finn's entire body went rigid with shock. He touched his throat again, feeling the vibration of his own voice beneath his fingertips. His eyes filled with tears. He looked at Serena like she'd just handed him the world. SSS. He was trying. Fighting for it. Serena. Her name. His first word was her name. Then his face crumpled and he shouted, loud and raw and beautiful, "Dad. Dad. Dad." The sound echoed through the silent mansion like thunder. Serena pulled him into her arms and sobbed. She held him tight as he screamed and laughed and cried all at once, 8 years of silence pouring out of him in a flood of sound. He could speak. He could finally speak. She rocked him gently, tears streaming down her face, whispering thank you to the God who'd guided her hands. This was the miracle. This was why she'd been brought here. Not for the money. For this boy. For this moment. Finn clung to her like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world, and she held him like he was the answer to every prayer she'd ever prayed. The front door slammed so hard the chandelier shook. Oliver Hart stormed into the foyer, jet-lagged and exhausted, his phone already buzzing with alerts from the house security system. Motion detected. Unusual activity. Child's room. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his heart pounding with a father's primal fear. When he burst through Finn's door, he saw a scene that made his blood run cold. His son, tears streaking his face, sobbing loudly, desperately, a sound Oliver had never heard in 8 years. And Serena, the maid, kneeling over him, holding something in her hand, her other hand on Finn's face. Oliver's mind didn't process miracle. It processed assault. Danger. Threat. Get away from him. His voice was a roar, feral and absolute. He crossed the room in 2 strides and yanked Finn away from Serena, cradling the boy against his chest. Finn was crying. Loudly. How was Finn crying loudly? What did you do to him? What did you do? Serena stumbled back, hands raised, her face pale. "Mr. Hart, please, I can explain. Security. Now." Oliver bellowed into the hallway, his hands shaking as he checked Finn for injuries, for trauma, for anything that explained why his silent son was suddenly screaming. 2 guards rushed in. Oliver pointed at Serena with a trembling finger, his face twisted with rage and terror. "Arrest her. Call the police. I want her out of my house. Now. Mr. Hart, please listen. Serena's voice cracked, desperation flooding her words. He can speak. He can, I said get her out. The guards grabbed Serena by the arms. She didn't resist. She just looked at Finn, her eyes pleading, and whispered, "Tell him, Finn. Please. Tell him." But Finn was sobbing into his father's shoulder, overwhelmed, unable to form words through the tears and shock. And Oliver, blinded by fear he didn't understand, watched as they dragged Serena Williams out of his home in handcuffs. The woman who had just saved his son. He didn't know it yet. But he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. The hospital room was chaos. Nurses, doctors, specialists Oliver recognized from years of consultations, all crowding around Finn with instruments and stethoscopes and disbelief written across their faces. Because Finn was talking. Not perfectly. Not smoothly. But he was forming words, sentences, thoughts. My name is Finn. I'm 8. I like cars. Dr. Brennan, the neurologist who diagnosed Finn with irreversible psychosomatic muteness 3 years ago, looked like he'd seen a ghost. This is impossible. The scans, the evaluations, there was no physical pathology that could, then explain it. Oliver's voice was ice. Cold. Controlled. Deadly. He stood in the corner of the room, arms crossed, watching these men stumble over themselves. Explain how my son, who you said would never speak, is speaking. Dr. Brennan hesitated. Another doctor, younger, checked his tablet nervously. Mr. Hart, we'll need to run new tests, updated imaging, no. Oliver stepped forward. You'll explain it now, or I'll have every one of your licenses reviewed by the end of the week. The room went silent. Dr. Brennan exchanged a glance with his colleague. Then slowly, he pulled up a file on the computer. An old file. Dated 6 years ago. There was a notation. During the initial laryngoscopy, a foreign object was observed near the tonsil, but it was deemed non-obstructive and non-obstructive. Oliver's voice was shaking now. My son couldn't speak. The object wasn't blocking the vocal cords directly. The muteness was attributed to psychological trauma from the object's presence, combined with maternal loss. We recommended ongoing therapy, and ongoing therapy you billed me for 6 years. Oliver's hands clenched into fists. You saw it. You saw the object. And you left it there. Dr. Brennan's face went pale. Mr. Hart, the standard protocol in cases of ambiguous, get out. Oliver's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut like a blade. All of you. Get out before I do something I regret. They fled. And Oliver stood alone with his son, staring at the medical report that proved he'd been lied to. Betrayed. Bled dry by a system that saw his grief as profit. And the woman he'd had arrested. The maid with no credentials, no degree, no reason to know better than the experts. She'd seen what they refused to see. She'd saved his son. And he'd called her a criminal. The security office was small, cold, lit by flickering fluorescent lights. Serena sat in a plastic chair, hands folded in her lap, her face calm despite the tears that had dried on her cheeks. She wasn't angry. She was tired. Tired and heartbroken and strangely at peace. She'd done what God had asked her to do. The rest was out of her hands. The door opened. Oliver Hart stepped inside. He looked different. Smaller. The arrogance was gone, stripped away, leaving only a man drowning in shame. He crossed the room slowly and did something Serena never expected. He knelt. Right there on the concrete floor, a billionaire in a $1,000 suit, he knelt in front of a maid and bowed his head. I'm sorry. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. You saved my son. You gave me back his voice. And I treated you like a criminal. I didn't listen. I didn't see. I'm sorry. Serena's throat tightened. She reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. You were scared. You're his father. I understand. No. Oliver looked up, tears streaming down his face. You don't understand. I spent 8 years trusting people who lied to me, who saw my pain and saw profit. And the one person who told me the truth, I threw away. Please. Please forgive me. Serena nodded slowly. I forgive you, Mr. Hart. He exhaled, a shuddering, broken sound. Then he stood and offered her his hand. Come with me. Please. Finn needs to see you. They walked back to the hospital room together. When the door opened, Finn's head snapped up. His face lit up like the sun. Serena. He launched himself off the bed and ran, not to his father but to her. He wrapped his arms around her waist and buried his face in her side. You came back. I thought they took you away forever. I'm here, sweetheart, she whispered, holding him close. I'm right here. Oliver watched them, his heart breaking and healing all at once. Then Finn pulled back, looked at his father, and said the words that would stay with Oliver for the rest of his life. Dad, I can talk now. Finn's voice was small, wonder-filled. Then his face grew serious. And you look really, really sad. Oliver knelt and pulled his son into his arms. I was sad, Finn. But I'm not anymore. Not now. Finn hugged him tight. Then he whispered, Serena saved me, Dad. She's a hero. I know, Oliver said, looking at Serena over his son's head. I know she is. And for the first time in 8 years, the silence in Oliver Hart's life was gone, replaced by the sound of his son's voice, and the quiet, steady presence of a woman whose faith had moved mountains. If this story moved you, don't just watch and leave. Subscribe. Share it. Tell someone who needs to hear it today. This community is built on people who believe miracles still happen. Be part of it.